go. Patzer's Playground, episode 28. Okay, we got the bishop's opening. Knight f6, natural. d3, okay. So white simply defends his pawn and gets ready to develop his other bishop. So what should black do here? There are a couple moves that are okay here, but what are they? So yeah, a move like bishop c5 makes sense. A move like knight c6. Even a move like c6. The idea is you want to play a quick d5 and just take the center. If you play d5 immediately, it's a little premature because this knight is a bit loose on d5. But the move that black played, I feel, is a little passive. He played a d6. I mean, it's okay. It's just, I don't know why he unnecessarily blocks in this bishop. And now it means that if he ever wants to play c6 and d5, it's going to take an extra tempo. And also, he didn't develop this bishop first, so. I mean, it's okay. It's just a little passive, that's all. So, h3, bishop b7, knight f3, castle. Okay, all developing moves. Okay, knight g5. So it looks like white wants to be attacking black. So first of all, what is white threatening here? Well, truth is white's actually not threatening anything because this exchange is actually going to be good for black. So, you know, for example, if black just develops this
check,
this material imbalance is good for black. Black gets a knight and a bishop for rook and a pawn, which is going to be very good in the middle game. So this is not something that black should fear. So if white's not threatening anything, what should black do? Well, again, it makes sense to build a big center and also block this diagonal. So simply c6 with the idea of d5. But again, this is not really a move that white should be concerned about. Or the black should be concerned about. White's moving the same piece twice in the opening before developing his pieces. Notice that these guys are still undeveloped. So, okay, but white plays instead a6, which isn't bad. I mean, his idea is he wants to play b5 and chase the bishop away. But c6 would have been a more direct way to do that because you also control the d5 square. Okay, so a4 to stop b5. Now again, he should play c6. But okay, bishop d7, c3. Okay. So now, again, c6 makes sense, but also maybe just h6 to chase away the knight so that you don't have to worry anymore about, you know, queen b3 ideas, for example. Because now maybe white is starting queen b3. The idea is on queen b3 he's hitting this guy and also attacking this guy a third time. So to remove one of the attackers of that pawn, just chase away knight with h6. So for example, h6, knight f3. And then maybe play c5. With the idea to play maybe knight c6, knight a5, and then b5. And just expand on the queen side. Yeah, knight f7. I mean, it still doesn't work. Right. Because if you play queen b3 here, I can play d5. And now you don't even win anything. So bishop f7.
Check.
King f7, queen b3, check.
Check.
Problem is this queen gets kind of stuck here. So for example, say king g6, queen takes queen takes b7, knight c6, and now the queen has to waste some tempi getting back into the game. So actually opening this b file probably helps black, not white. Because, okay, say after queen b3, rook b8, queen c2 or something. Now black has pressure on this b pawn, so. Okay. But instead, black played the move 98. Okay. So the problem is that this knight was actually doing a good job defending black's king here. In particular, the knight was covering this h5 square. So here white has a strong response, which is to play queen h5. The idea is this is a fork. It's forking queen takes h7 mate. And also now we're adding a third attacker to f7. So basically, forced is bishop takes g5 to remove the knight. Bishop takes g5. Knight f6. Notice that this pawn is pinned, so f6 is illegal. Queen h4. Bishop e6, bishop f6, queen f6, queen f6, g f6. And this endgame should be good for white because of this weakness on h7 and the fact that the pawn structure is compromised. And all of that is basically forced. Okay. But again, this 98 move doesn't really accomplish what it's intending to because white doesn't even have to move this knight. And he just simply plays h4. And now to kind of further solidify the silliness of knight to e8. The best move here for black is actually to play knight f6 again and to remove this queen h5 idea. So it's never good when your best move is to return back to the original square that you came from. And now notice that, you know, black is not going to be eager to take this knight because it opens up the h file after pawn takes, and then white can develop an attack on this h7 pawn. So this 98 wasn't a good idea. And notice that really neither side has really furthered their development. From move 6 on, like neither side really has developed. White moved 3 pawns and black moved his pieces backwards. So, okay. So white plays c6, or black plays c6. And now actually black loses by force here. Because again, queen h5 just wins now. Because I'm threatening queen takes h7 again. So again, you have to take. Again, if knight f6, I can take on f7. So I'll just show you guys that cool variation. Knight f6, knight f7. And then rook f7, bishop f7, king h8 wins the exchange. And if knight h5, knight d8 check. And then 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 check. And I just win everything. So queen h5 would win because after bishop takes g5, h6 g5, now there's really no way to stop this mate. h6, you can simply take... You can't even play g6 because I can still take.
Check.
And this bishop is pinning. So queen h5 would have won the game. But okay, queen f3, similar idea to attack f7. And again, black should play the move knight f6 to stop queen from hitting f7 and also to stop queen h5. Okay, good. Finally. Okay, queen g3. Okay, now it's time to get rid of this pesky knight with h6. Not necessarily even intending to take, but you know, giving the king a little bit more breathing room. Also maybe giving this knight a chance to hop back to h7 at some point to help defend. Which is what black did, which is good. Okay, b4. And now, the thing is, you can't actually probably take this knight because opening the h file is going to be bad news because the queen and the rook can kind of coordinate to create some pretty nasty threats, but simply a move like d5 here is good. And then after bishop b3, just play queen c7, simply to defend this pawn. Yeah, so this is definitely a fishing pole. Definitely a fishing pole. So h6 was a good move, but it's not because you actually want to take this knight. You just kind of want to finish your development and control the center. Yeah. Okay, but black played knight h5, queen f3. And now, again, removing this knight from f6 was not the best idea because the best move is knight f6 again, because, again, white's threatening multiple things. So after knight f6, queen g3, maybe black can go for some sort of repetition with knight h5. But now black decides to take the knight, which is even worse than having taken it before because he's not even winning a piece here because this is hanging. So this seems rather suicidal. Okay, so black took the pawn, or sorry, white took the pawn, which is the right move because, I mean, this knight really can't be held on h5. Because after black plays a natural g6, which is kind of forced, what should white play here? This is a basic attacking pattern that you guys should be familiar with. Yeah, so simply rook takes h5 wins. The point is that you can't actually take back because not queen takes h5, but simply g6. And now the problem is you're actually just getting mated. Not hard to stop this. So black can't even take here. And if that's the case, then, you know, just rook h6 and threatening rook takes g6 with queen g3, queen h4 to follow. I mean, it's all going downhill. So that would have ended the game immediately. But white played g4, which is what you guys suggested. But black actually has a defense here. So you were saying rook h5 and king g7. Yeah. Oops. Sorry. So king g7 here. So the problem with king g7 is that I simply take on f7 with the pawn. And then if rook h8, queen g3
Check.
mates. Because king f8, queen g8.
Check.
Oops. That's not the right way.
Check.
And then this is
Checkmate.
So you can't really hide. Even though you'd like to. But okay, so anyway, so white played g4, so what should black play here? Well, black can't really move this knight because queen h3 is coming. So for example, knight g7, queen h3, if knight f4, take, and then queen h3, you're getting mated on h7 or h8. But what black can do is black can play a move like d5 to simply try to block the diagonal. And the point is, if take, 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 I can actually take on g4 here. Point is, now if the queen takes g4, I can play queen takes d5, and actually black's just winning. So this is why g4 was not as strong as rook takes h5. But instead, black played bishop takes g5. And now white again can win the game with take. Point is, if take, then take. And again, this is kind of bad news bears for black. So take, take, this is what happened. Take, take. Okay, so black's pretty much mated here. King g7. Okay, so do you guys see the checkmate? It's actually forced mate here. Yeah, it's fairly simple because it's going to be all checks. Yeah, so it's fairly simple because it's all checks. So rook h7,
check.
King takes,
Check.
check,
Check. Check.
and now here it's a little tricky, but simply check,
Check.
check,
Check.
check,
Check.
and mate.
Checkmate.
So it's actually a forced mate nate from the initial position. And if king
Check.
here, of course, simply bishop takes f7
Check.
mates in 2. Because you have to take here, and then this is mate.
Checkmate.
So yeah, king g8 is not really a problem. So yeah, white has forced mate, but he instead played bishop takes f7, and now black's actually surviving, but only one move saves him. So what must black play here? So it's funny that white rejected playing a check in favor of bishop takes f7. So yeah, black must play rook h8. The purpose is twofold. One is to contest the h file, but the second purpose is also to give the king a flight square. So rook h8 is what black played.
Check.
And then after rook h7, black's actually just winning. Simply take, take, and queen g5. So black took on h7.
Check.
But didn't play queen g5. He took on h7. So this pawn was actually not a big deal. But what black needed to do was kind of get his pieces out. So queen g5 kind of stops all checks and gets ready to develop this bishop so that you can move this knight so you can get this rook over. And notice how white's pieces are all kind of huddled on the back rank. So it's hard for white to actually generate a threat here. You have to go something like queen h1 maybe to threaten queen, but then now you can play king h8 and you're safe. And this queen is controlling a lot of key squares. But okay, he took on h7, and now the problem is he comes under a strong attack.
Check.
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 Check. And knight d2. Okay. So black has a chance to win here with take.
Check.
And queen h4. Well, the idea is to hit f2 and also to give the king the e7 square. After which black can kind of finish his development and just be up a piece. Notice how the queen again controls a lot of checking squares. But after take, he didn't play queen h4, but instead played bishop e8. And now again, white has a forced mate. Okay, so can you guys see this one? This one's a little bit trickier. Okay, so the queen and the bishop alone can't do it. You need the rook's help. So yeah, rook h1 is it. And then bishop takes f7. Rook h8 check. Queen g5 check.
Check.
Rook takes d8. And then queen h6 check.
Check. Check.
Check.
Check.
Check.
Check.
Oh, sorry, not there. Check. And then
Check. Checkmate.
mate. Okay. So again, that was the forced mate. Rook h1 first. And the king can't really escape. Because notice if rook h1, if he tries like king e7, then just queen e6 check.
Check.
Forces king f8. And then rook h8.
Check.
Queen g6.
Check.
And queen g8 is mate.
Checkmate.
Or queen h6 is mate. Okay, so anyway,
Check.
white instead played queen g8. And now this is nothing more than a draw. And so the way to keep the draw is to make sure the king can't go this way. And you do that by bishop e6. And now there's actually a threat of queen to g5, which wins the queen, because the king doesn't have this square. So after this, knight d7 is forced. Then rook g1, d5, e d5, king d6, rook g7, c d5, bishop d5, queen f6, bishop e7, and now black has a draw with queen f2. So queen f2 and then check the king forever. Because if black doesn't take the draw, he's actually worse, because his pieces are all kind of in bad shape, and not to mention he's down 3 pawns. I mean, he's up a piece, but he's down 3 pawns, so it's not even like he's up any material. But okay.
Check.
Queen g5, and now black's actually winning because he'll just be up a piece here. So king d7 correct.
Check.
And now he slides over to c7, and now he's actually completely safe. And he's just getting ready to get his knight out and get his rook out. So a5,
Check.
take, knight d7, good move, blocking the check. Queen f5, queen h8, rook g1, rook f8, queen
Check.
c7, check, and now black's just mating.
Check.
Yeah, so queen takes knight, forced pretty much.
Check.
Check,
Check.
check,
Checkmate.
and checkmate. So black didn't exactly play that game expertly, but he still won. Which is good. Yeah, swindles are good. Okay, so that was that game. Let's go over one more. Okay, so this time we're going to be from the white perspective. So you have an English botfitting system, near and dear to my heart. Made videos on these, so if you guys want to check out how to play this accurately, you guys can check out the opening forum on this topic. So bishop e6, attacking b3, or sorry, c4, so d3, castle. Okay, so in this type of setup where black has the option of playing queen b6, like the idea is you want to play f4 here in general, but with queen b6 check and knight g4 ideas, it's usually better to play h3 first and keep pieces out of g4, and then follow up with f4. But f4 right away is a little premature because of these queen b6 ideas.
Check.
But okay, queen b6 and knight g4. So this is actually still okay for white. But white has to play a certain move here. Do you guys know what white's best move is here? So black is threatening knight f2, which wins the exchange. So what should white do here? Well, the only move that saves you from knight f2 is to play queen e1. But you actually want to play this move first, f5. So it's a nice way to gain a tempo, because you want to play f5 anyway to gain space. And so after f5, bishop d7, now you can play queen e1. And now this is okay for white. And of course, if knight f2,
Check.
then you take, and then take, and this is actually good for white. Again, 2 pieces for a rook and a pawn. And black has a weakness on e6. And the fact that black owns the f file is not really too concerning because, I mean, at the very least, you can force trade queens here with queen g1, and then just get your
Check.
pieces out with bishop e3 and rook f1. And this should be good for white. Okay, but queen e1 first. So a bit of inaccuracy, but still not too terrible. Okay, so now black plays e takes f4. So part of the reason why you want to play f5 is so that, you know, this move is not possible. Because with f5, then this bishop becomes bad. But now the bishop is actually quite good. So the question is, in this position, what should black recapture? Or sorry, what should white recapture with? So as a general rule in these positions, if black can get in this move f5 comfortably, you don't want to take with the pawn. Normally you would want to take with the pawn, but if black can play f5 immediately to counter this, then you don't want to take with the pawn. So that's like the general golden rule of these botfitting style positions. Similarly, like when black plays f5 and you can play f4, it's like when black plays f5, you take and play f4, and it's a similar idea. So here white should take with a knight here, and now of course f5 is not possible because knight takes e6, but he took with the pawn, and now f5, and now it's kind of like a awkward situation for white. But I mean, he's still doing okay. But his kingside expansion is a bit stymied because he has no g-pawn anymore to kind of break stuff open. So, you know, he can kick the knight around, but his kingside expansion is kind of over with. Okay, so knight g3. So here black should just play rook e8 because this bishop being loose is a bit of an issue. White has some e takes f5 ideas, which would force like bishop takes f5, which is probably not what black wants to do. Because after this move, bishop d4, now white has a very strong idea at his disposal, which is e takes f5. So now we're hitting this bishop. And so bishop takes f5 is forced, and then knight takes f5, g takes f5, h3, knight f6, queen e6, check, which is a fork winning this d6 pawn. So white could just win a pawn here. And notice, for example, that if black tries this, knight f2,
check,
and knight takes d3, this doesn't work because of queen g3, which is a fork of the knight and the queen and the king. Yeah, also queen takes f5. So yeah, notice in this position that by playing this e takes f5 and knight takes f5, that after g takes f5, this open g file is actually hurting black. So, you know, this knight really can't stay on this square for very long because white's next move is just going to be knight a4. So for example, if knight d7, just knight a4. And then followed by queen e6. So, okay, that would have been good, but okay, he played h3 instead. And now black can simply play knight f2 and knight takes d3. Which is kind of like what black was threatening all along with this bishop d4 move.
Check.
Okay, so knight f2, knight d3, so now white's in some trouble. Queen d2, take. Okay. So here, what do you guys think white should take back with? 3 choices. You can take with either knight or you can take with a bishop. So I think personally I probably would have taken with knight g4. Idea is to hit d6 and to give this knight further support. I don't really like taking with this knight because then, you know, black at the very least can maybe take on c1, take on b2 or something. And taking with the bishop seems like the worst option because I'm not really sure that this bishop needs to be on e4 when like a knight would prefer to be on e4 to attack d6. So he played bishop takes e4 and then knight takes c1 and knight a4. Okay. So now black actually missed a very, very strong move here. So temporarily black is up a piece, but white played knight a4 to either force the queen away from this bishop or basically to force the queen away from the bishop so that he can take on d4 rather than taking on c1. But black actually has a really strong move here. I wonder if you guys can see what it is. This is really tough. This is really tough. So remember, black is temporarily up a piece in this position, but white's hitting like 3 things simultaneously. He's attacking b6, attacking c1, attacking d4. So don't forget the queen is hanging currently. Black's queen is hanging. Okay, so again, like I said, this is really tough, but the right answer is queen to d8. Looks really odd, right? Simply retreating the queen, but it has a very venomous point. And the point is that if queen takes d4, black has this very strong queen h4 move, the idea is queen takes h3, but the secondary idea is if bishop g2, then we have this queen takes g3,
Check.
which is simply beautiful, because after king takes, knight e2,
Check.
this knight from c1 comes back from the grave and wins all of white's pieces. King h2, knight takes d4, and here black's just up a piece. So it means that after queen d8, that this piece is actually taboo. Queen takes d4 loses. Yeah, so white was already in serious trouble here because knight a4 was actually best. So queen d8 is very strong, and so instead of queen takes d4, white would have to play rook takes c1. But again, queen h4. So again, if queen takes d4, queen takes h3,
Check.
and queen takes g3 is very
Check.
strong. So after queen h4, white would play bishop g2 forced. But now after c5, this is very good for black, because black's just going to play knight c6 and double and attack this weak pawn. Not to mention that black's already up a pawn here. So yeah, white's already in serious trouble in this position. But black missed it and played queen a6. And now all of a sudden, it turns out that white's actually better. Because after queen takes d4, black should probably play knight e2 here. And then queen takes d6 or e8. Knight takes e2, queen takes a4, knight c3. And all of a sudden, white has an attack, not even down a pawn anymore. And this queen is a little misplaced. And black's pieces are kind of stuck. So this would have been really good. Okay, so white did play queen takes d4. Queen takes a4. And now simply rook takes c1. Queen a5. Okay. So white's pieces are poised to attack. What should white play here? What should white play here? So yeah, white actually can basically just win the game by force with the move f5. And the point is that if the bishop moves, f takes g6 basically mates by force. So black has to play a move like knight a6. This is actually best. And then just f takes e6, and it's pretty much over. You know, if black opens the g file, it's pretty much suicidal. At the very least, knight h5 wins like everything. So, or actually, probably rook g1 first, and then knight h5. Sorry, because you don't want to have queen e5 come with check. So yeah, f5 would have just won the game. But okay, he took on d6, which is good too. Just not as instantly crushing as f5. Gets a bishop f7. And now, how should white finish the game off? So it turns out that white actually is almost mating by force. And the move to do that is knight to f5. Very strong move. So the point is we simply want to play queen to f6 and queen to g7 mate. And notice that g takes f5 just gets mated by force. Just rook g1.
Check.
Rook takes g6.
Check.
Take.
Check.
And rook g1. And now unstoppable queen h6 mate. So he can't play bishop g6. Or sorry, he can't take. And so he pretty much has to play something like rook e8. But then again, queen f6 is still basically transposing. Because, okay, take. Rook g1.
Check. If king f8, then I think simplest is simply I think it's just like queen d6. Check.
And no, maybe not queen d6. Wait. So if queen f6, g5 or g1,
Check.
bishop g6, take.
Check.
Or no. So if king f8 here, maybe just rook g7. Maybe just rook g7. And then rook e7, rook h7 or something. Then try to play rook h8 mate. Yeah, if queen c7. No, there's something here. I just forgot what it was. Yeah, maybe just rook g1 first. Yeah, maybe just rook g1 first. And now the idea is queen f6 and queen g7. But in any case, okay, so black took, and now it's just mate and 8.
Check.
So rook g1,
Check.
rook g6,
Check.
queen g6. Okay, so now it's just mate and 5 here with rook g1. The idea is to cut the king off, and then queen h6 is mate. And there's really nothing black can do. So for example, if rook g1, queen c7, just queen h6,
Check.
and queen f8
Check.
mate. So black can basically give a check or two. He could play queen
Check.
g2 and like queen g2 or something, but it's basically mate. Okay, but here white
Check.
queen h5, and now the king is let out, unfortunately. He's still winning, but it's trickier now. So king g7,
Check.
rook g1,
Check.
queen h6,
Check.
rook g7,
Check.
queen g5. Okay. So this is still winning, but he has to find the accurate moves here. Okay, so how can white win here? So yeah, the way to do it is rook g8.
Check.
King d7 forced. Bishop takes f5.
Check.
Which is the key move. Because you're trying to deflect the queen from d8. So if queen takes f5, queen d8 mates. So rook takes f5 forced. Queen g7.
Check.
King d6, queen d4.
Check.
Rook d5 forced. And then after c d5, queen d5 forced. Rook d8 wins.
Check.
Because knight d7 forced, and then queen takes
Check.
d5, and rook takes a8. And white's up the exchange. So that's kind of tough to see. Because of queen f5, queen
Check.
d8,
Check.
and rook e6 mates. But yeah, it is forced. I'll go one more time. So queen d7,
Check.
king d6, queen d4,
Check.
rook d5 forced. Because if here, then queen d8 is mate.
Checkmate.
And if here, then rook g7.
Check.
Because notice that black doesn't even have any checks. Yeah, I know. But rook d5, c d5. Because I'm threatening dc. Yeah. I mean, what else are you going to do here? If you play c5, I just play rook g6 and I mate you. And if you play cd, I play rook g6 and I mate you. So you gotta take the queen. Yeah. So anyway, this would have won. But okay, he played queen g6 instead. And now it's a draw.
Check.
Check. And now this is just a draw. Bishop g2. Queen takes f4,
Check.
king h1, queen takes c4, b3, queen c1,
Check.
king h2, queen f4,
Check.
king h1, queen c7, trying to win. But just rook
Check.
g8, king e7, queen g5,
Check.
king d6, queen d2,
Check.
king e6, queen h6,
Check.
king d7, queen d2,
Check.
etc. Draw. Black can never interpose because of rook d8. So it's just a draw. Okay. So, but bishop g2 is forced here. Bishop g2 is forced. Because after this, now black wins by force. The point is that now black has simply queen c1. And if
Check.
the king moves, then queen b2
Check.
is check and a fork. So the king can never go to the back row because of queen c1. And then queen c1, you can't move your king, so queen g1 is forced, and then just
Check.
take, and just down a rook. And a knight. But if bishop g2, white still is drawing. Because, again, there's no check on b2. So you can play check and check,
Check.
but queen takes b2 is not check, because the bishop is blocking. So this is still a draw. But now after king g1, king h1's over.
Check.
Black plays queen e1, mistake, queen c1 just won instantly. This is still a draw, actually.
Check.
Because now bishop g2 forced again. But now it's
Check.
a loss because of queen f1, f4, c1, b2. So now black's winning.
Check.
Check,
Check.
check. Well, I mean, he could have done this one instead, which would have been easier.
Check.
But okay,
Check.
it's still over because now of this fork. Alright, so black won. But white had his chances, including a forced mate in 5. And he missed the winning of a piece on move 21, but other than that, knight f5 was a very strong idea.
So that's it for Patzer's Playground, episode 28.